Yes.
All right. Hello, friends, and welcome to Story Crafting Sessions Publishing. I am your host, Diana Gunn, and I am so excited to have you with us for today's conference and also for this very first panel. We will be talking about finding a home for your fiction. We at off to a great start. Choosing between traditional publishing, small press publishing, and self-publishing. So we have a lot to get through today, but before we get into it, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, you'll have noticed that as a participant, you are muted and you do not have video permissions. That's so that we can record the panel without getting into trouble or breaking any privacy concerns. But there will be some time for audience questions. If you want to ask questions, you can do so in the text chat, and I have someone keeping an eye on that to make sure that I don't miss any questions. So we'll get to that in the last 20, 30 minutes of the panel. And that's the main thing. The other thing is that there is a Discord where you can hang out between panels, and some of our panelists will also be there and we'll be happy to chat about this panel afterward. And there's socializing area and also an after party happening from 6 to 7 in the Discord. So do head on over there if you are not already. And finally, make sure to check out Renaissance Press. They have generously donated this Zoom space to us and given us the ability to have live captions at this event. And of course, Weeknight Writers itself, which is a social enterprise dedicated to creating affordable and accessible support for fiction writers. We do all kinds of stuff. We have our other big thing is First Draft Fall, which is our answer to the catastrophe that is NaNoWriMo's failure. And yeah, we hope you will join us for all of those cool things. You can find us at weeknightwriters.com and also in the Discord for the conference and all over the internet. So, okay, not all over the internet. I'm not actually on anything meta, but anyway, now let's hear from our amazing panels. If you could all just say hello, tell us a little bit about your publishing, how you are published, and why you chose that publishing path. And I'm going to start with Rhonda.
Yeah, straight in the deep end. Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, wherever you are. Hi, I am RSA Garcia, but you don't need to use that alphabet soup. You can just call me Rhonda. And I am a speculative fiction writer from Trinidad and Tobago, which is the most southerly isle in the tropical Caribbean, land of the forest, home of steel band, calypso, and limbo. So, mostly I decided to become a writer when I was probably around 8 years old and got really, really jealous of Laura Ingalls Wilder. And I said, okay, if she could do it, I can do it. And industry in my country. So my path had to be about finding a way actually out of a place where there is absolutely nothing, like no one. Like the only way books got published here was if you had money to go to a printer and get them to publish it for yourself. But I unfortunately was born, shall we say, financially challenged. And so I decided someone else needed to pay for that. It could not be me, and it definitely couldn't be my parents. And so I had a kind of a two-lane decision where plan A was get a job, be a productive member of society, pay bills, and do not be a starving artist, because I am from the West Indies and that it does not fly. And the other path was, yeah, get published and make someone else pay for it. So when I started out, the internet had just begun. I did not have a computer. Most places did not accept email submissions or even know how to do that. Most agents didn't even have emails. Yes, I am from that. I am a dinosaur, okay? I am a dinosaur. The Jurassic animals walked the earth when I started writing and trying to get published. But the thing I did learn that I think stands up to today is let other people pay for shit. The money goes to you, not to other people, right? That has guided my entire career. And that's why I decided as long as people were paying me, they could get my work. I was headed toward traditional publishing, but I took a sort of detour into independent publishing along the way, and also have a lot of experience in the short story market. I think that answers all the questions before we get into details.
Yeah,
And you
that's
can move on
great.
to whoever's next.
And fun fact, I also decided I wanted to be a writer when I was 8 years old. Look at us being so young and making decisions that were going to wreck the rest of our entire lives. I mean, we're all having fun
Yeah,
here and rolling in cash. Uh,
yeah, sure.
all right, who wants to go next? May?
I, yeah, sure. I can go next. Hi everyone. I'm May Barros. I'm a writer from Brazil. I don't remember when I decided I wanted writing to be my career, but I'd say 8 years old sounds right. So I'm also in that camp of like being young and making a decision that I don't fully understand. But I've been writing stories since I learned how to write, and I cannot not write. So my publishing story starts mostly with fanfic. Internet was already a thing when I came of age and I could publish stuff online. So I started with fanfic and I sent a few short stories for a couple of anthologies here in Brazil and I got published that way. But mostly I also do not have money to pay people to publish me. So the money needs to come towards me, not the other way around. And I getting into traditional publishing here in Brazil is tricky. There aren't a lot of agencies the way there is in the US. So I decided self-publishing is the way for me. And I mostly do all of my stuff and I do my cover art, I do my designing, I do my editing when I can. When I can't, I try to pay other people, but that's not always available to me. So I wear several hats so I can get my stuff published. And I publish both in Portuguese and in English.
Cover design and writing the books and publishing in two languages. That is very impressive and mildly terrifying. How does it
Amen.
feel to
N-
be a superhero?
Not mildly terrifying, it's extremely terrifying.
Fair. Gabriel,
Yes, hi. I am Gabriel Hargrave. I currently only self-publish. I someday might sneak in to try publishing if I can, but I was, I want to say I was about 5 or 6 when I was like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I was always like, I'm absolutely going to get an agent and I'm going to get published traditionally, and it's going to be, And then I actually finished a book and went, oh, oh, this isn't really the kind of thing that trad publishing is going for these days. So, um, I I actually started out doing service exchanges for like cover art and things like that because I'm an editor. So I would be like, hey, rather than us pay each other for work we're already going to be doing, like, why don't we just like, I'll do, this much of editing for you if you do cover for me, or I'm now at a point where I have been able to start just paying people to do, like, I just paid my cover artist earlier this year for the cover for my third book, but it's mostly just me doing the editing and the promotion and the marketing and the publishing aspect of it. I'm just not very artistic. So like um it's easier for me to get someone else to do that because you don't want to see what my art would be like. Hello, kitty.
Kitty.
Hi. Um so yeah, I came into to writing really early, but it wasn't until about 3 or 4 years ago that I finally had something that I could actually publish, and it was not really to market. And so I was like, I'm gonna go the self-publishing route because I want this story out there. And I know that on top of all of the other stuff that you have to deal with with getting traditionally published, like it just wasn't the kind of thing that they would be necessarily looking for at the time.
Yeah, totally, totally got it. And Mia.
Well, unlike everybody else here, I guess I did not decide I wanted to be a writer, like ever. I just kind of fell into this when I was 16. I decided I want to teach piano, and that is the path that I have been on. Clearly, I am still on this path because, that's my day job. But I had always been writing, and like May, I did a lot of fanfic. I came into the scene just as Internet 1.0 was taking off, so like right after, or maybe like 1.5. So this is like GeoCities and Yahoo and stuff. So before AO3, before fanfiction.net. And this had always just been a hobby for me. And then one day I was like, well, let me try it. Like, let me finish a thing, because if there's one thing that fanfic authors do, it's not finish what they're writing. And I said, you know what? I'm going to finish a thing. So I finished Thing, and then I edited Thing, and then I decided I was going to submit it to the Karina Press open call for romance novels, and shock of shocks, I got a full request, and I went, but I haven't finished editing yet. So furiously, I had to go and finish writing my first book, which I had like zero expectations. So I sent it. I got rejected, but then I did Pitch Wars. I was first loser for Pitch Wars, meaning I got requests and almost made it 3 times out of 4 with all the mentors. But yeah, eventually, I queried, got my agent, got published. I decided on traditional because I am the person who talks about herself like the least. People around me don't know that I write. I keep everything very secret, which is very bad for like marketing. Like, you can't sell books if you don't tell anybody that you write books. It's a great conundrum. So I wear many other hats in the rest of my life, and I just looked at the stack of hats. And have you guys ever read the book Caps for Sale? You know the illustration of the man on the cover who's got like 4 caps of each color stacked on his head, and I'm like, that's not aspirational to me. So I will only wear maybe half that stack. And I know, and self-publishing was like, I looked at the cost-benefit analysis, and I said, I am bad at art, and I am bad at promotion, and I am really, really supremely bad at a bunch of the other things in here. So let me, I have more patience than I have time in my day. So I will go the traditional route, and we'll see what happens. And it wasn't a make or break kind of thing for me. So yeah, like the make or break thing is that instrument is sitting behind me right now. So I came at this definitely differently from everyone else out here. But yeah, I'm now on book 2 in the traditional publishing career. I got my second deal, and I was like, oh, I guess it's a career now, because I really thought I'd have one and like just flame out and like never write again, and like, what am I doing with my life? And all the like writhing that we do internally over everything involved in writing. So yeah, that's my long-winded way of saying, hey, I'm not as accomplished as everybody else here because I don't do all the other things that everybody else does. But like,
It's okay. I'm not accomplished either. I could draw stick figures.
oh,
Same.
Rana, hush. Excuse me, award winner. What haven't you won? What haven't you won in your short fiction?
Hey,
Come
listen,
on.
you cannot sell me out like this.
No. This is not about hiding your own flowers. You can't come in here and expect me, your friend, to say, hey, Rhonda is a multiple award-winning short story author, and you should go vote for her. Like, what is on this? What is on
Nothing. I am quiet this year.
No, you're not. I have to go Google this right
I
now
had
because
one
I'm
good
like,
year. Like
the reason
22
why I
years
can't
into my
remember.
career.
Listen, y'all, the reason why I can't remember what Rhonda is up for is because she's been up for so many.
It's true.
Yeah. I'm
Yep.
quiet. I'm quiet this year. I'm just trying to get through the health issues and, maybe next year, maybe next year.
We can
Huh.
all have a gap year to recover and like build up for next year's award season.
It'll be like,
Exactly. All right, so you also all kind of answered my second question in the first question, which is why you chose your publishing path. And we sort of started touching on it, but I'd like to get into a bit more detail about what have you had to invest, whether it be time or money or education, in order to pursue this specific path of publishing, and what should other people expect to have to invest if they want to pursue a similar path? And let's start with Gabriel this time.
Hey, yes. So the biggest thing is time, especially when you are doing most of it. Like I cover art is about the only thing that I outsource other than when I can afford it, I have a proofreader who goes through and just double checks that what I have is that I haven't missed anything. Because when you're editing your own work, even when you do it professionally, like you miss things occasionally. Um, but it's a lot of time to invest. You're doing the writing, you're doing the alpha beta process, you're doing the first edit, and if you've got someone else to do the second, great, but like if not, you're going through it again and again. I do anyways. Like I will read through, gosh, I want to say that I read my work at least 30 or 40 times through before it's out. And then, there's the actual process of publishing, and if you're doing it on multiple platforms. So I currently only really do Amazon and itch.io. Uh, but given the way that things are going with Amazon, a lot of us have started looking at other places to see like where else can we sell, especially the paperbacks. And then there's the marketing and the promoting, which are two different things. I'm pretty good at promo. I'm terrible at marketing. And I do all of my own promotional materials. So it's, the Canva subscription. And with that, like we all now have to be kind of careful because Canva's been using AI in some things
Yep.
and like trying to stay away from that. And there's also you are having to engage with other people, other authors and readers and reviewers, and there's the ARC process if that's something that you want to do. So that takes some extra time. And like there is a monetary aspect to it, but I see a lot of people when they're considering how to publish, they're going, "Oh, I don't have any money. Like I can't afford to do any of this." And it's not necessarily like you shouldn't be throwing a bunch of money, especially not at like your first book, because that's your testing the waters book. And if you have a skill, for me, it's editing; for others, it's drawing or, making reels or, some part of the process that somebody else might be bad at. Having that in your pocket to be like, hey, if you do my cover art, I will do your edit. Or if I do your cover art, will you, help me learn how to make videos? Or I did an audiobook version of my first book that there are audiobook narrators who will do like passion projects where it's like, oh, I feel really strongly about this book and I know the author can't afford it. So like, hey, I will, I'll do this particular project for the royalty share instead of doing it for an upfront price. But that also requires the time to connect with people and to see who you vibe with really well, and to actually really build those friendships instead of it just being like, oh, I know this person over there can maybe do this thing for me. Like let me get in their orbit. Like you don't want to be that person. You want to be someone who actually is part of your community. So yeah, there's money obviously, but you can get away without paying an arm and a leg if you are investing the time in building community, in building your craft, in building your skills when it comes to things like promotion and marketing and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say I actually spent more money upfront on my first book than I have on my other two books since then, because I have been able to, build that community and do the skill swap thing. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that like the other person's bad at, because everyone needs an
Hmm.
editor.
Yes.
Yep,
Sometimes you're trading editing for editing
yep.
with other
Or
people who are
critique partners, or yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. So there's a lot you can get out of community. And also I do have to agree with the person who in the chat, Gabriel, we love your mug. It's
Oh, this
amazing.
is
Yes.
so this is actually Jenna Morrissey who did The Savior's Sister. She does like those top 10 things that I hate in books videos. Um, she sells these. I don't know if she still does, but she did years ago, and so I grabbed one.
Yeah. Uh
Um, in hearing what Gabriel had to say, I do want to chime in with, like, there are some basic costs of being an author, whether you're a trad or self or indie published, hybrid published, because we all need we all need to get the word out. So you need to pay for a website, like your own domain. If you can't pay for a website, you need to have a link tree or a card co or any kind of place online that you can call your own and point people to when they ask. Oh, inevitably, when you say, "Oh, I'm a writer, I'm an author," they're like, "What have you written?" And you can go, "Ah," but also hand them over like this
I thought you
URL.
said you didn't tell people that you're a writer.
I don't, but I do.
Sometimes people snitch.
Some people snitch. When I'm out with my friends, I get asked, like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a piano teacher," and then like immediately my husband, who's the wife guy, and he's like, "Oh, she's an author." I'm like, so, but when you're at, say, a convention and you're networking, you're meeting other people, you're swapping, that's when you definitely need to have a URL or like even a QR code that points people in the direction of your website, that tells people what you do and what you write. And a graphic design program, really helpful. Yes, there's a free version of Canva, but Canva Pro is worth it, especially if you can get in with four
Hmm.
other folks and split the cost. And they at least mark their AI thing really clearly, so you can be like, not
Yes.
that, and not that. But
And they
Canva
let
Pro,
you disable it too.
oh, they do? I'm doing that immediately. You're gonna have to tell me how to do that after we're done here, because
If you go to the settings of your team, you can
uh-huh.
choose which apps you allow, and you can disallow the AI apps.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to do that as soon as we're done here. But I was trying to think of like other basic costs that you're going to need.
The like if you do so I have Microsoft Word because it's easier to work
Yes.
on client projects that way. And I also have done some of my formatting there in the past. Like that usually, unless you get super lucky, that has like the yearly subscription for it.
Mhm.
I mean, you also have the hey, my computer broke and I have to fix it costs, and um, some people have to buy their ISBNs depending on where they publish through. Because like Amazon will give you one for free when you publish, but other places do not. And
Mhm.
like things like the copyright and all of that also cost as well.
Yeah. I could definitely say when I first started out too, we didn't have to pay for any of that shit because it didn't exist. But we did have to spend a lot of money sending large manuscripts by mail. Yes, they wanted you to mail this shit. And then they would not read it, by the way. It would go to slush, which was apparently just another name for a bin. And you would never hear from them again, orbit. But
Naming and shaming.
It's on site with
can you
Rhonda.
imagine the cost to my 16-year-old self to send my little manuscript all the way to England and never hear back?
Yep.
I was devastated. I didn't mail anything else again. And I said, that is the last money I will spend. And honestly, that is yes, it's true. that a big part of the reason I went with traditional publishing was the money, but it's also about the fact that who else is going to distribute your books like that? Like I didn't
Yep.
want my books to be limited by who I could pay to put the books out. I grew up in a country where only the biggest books make it to the bookstore because we are too tiny to buy books that people may not buy. Businesses are small, they need to guarantee that people will buy stuff. So I grew up on Stephen King and big name West Indian authors like Michael Anthony and stuff like that. And so that's what I wanted. That was and when I was growing up, there was no other vision for a writer, you know. We grew up with this idea that a writer would be somebody behind the scenes and the publisher did everything else. You would not have to market your books or promo your books. Nobody would know what you look like unless you put your picture on the back of the book. Nobody would ever have your address. Nobody would, at the best, they would write your agent or your publisher, and then you'd get a fan mail or something. And if you were really, really lucky, you'd get lots of fan mail because you're Stephen King, So when I was coming up, I didn't have this idea of, I could pay to do this because that was a vanity press. And I did not want vanity press, There was no ecosystem of indie. There was an ecosystem of, hey, and we'll put anything out. And, that was considered shameful. So fast forward to the early 2000s, and John Grisham has made a name for himself, and everybody is getting mad at traditional publishers for various reasons, all of which is completely valid. And, you just have this new path that shows up in the form of Amazon. But unfortunately, Amazon showed themselves from a very early age, which is why I could never get on the bus, because initially it was $1.99. Or 99 cents. And a lot of people rushed into this newfangled thing called ebook because it was so easy to get people to pay 99 cents for a book. And Amanda Hawking became a multimillionaire. And then Amazon went, ooh, no, 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 no. This is too equitable and accessible. We're going to make sure that you don't make as much money if you sell at 99 cents. We're going to force you to sell at the same as traditional publishers. And then it became like, okay, so then I'm just cutting myself off at the knees for distribution, taking on all the work onto myself, which I cannot do because I work full time and I have a family to take care of, And so all of that went into the whole idea. But the biggest thing for me was time and working on my craft. Because I knew that if I wanted to go that path, I would have to compete against some people who were extremely lucky, extremely privileged, or extremely talented, or all three. And I am from this really tiny island nobody's ever heard of. And I kid you not, that I got a lot of rejections in the early days that went along the lines of, you're from where? I got rejections that were basically like, the best one I ever had, they're closed now, by the way. They closed several years later, under financial fraud circumstances.
Should have accepted you. Oh, okay, maybe not if it was financial fraud.
And they were completely correct, because this was like this was probably my 11th book. I was writing books. And then I wrote this book and I decided, okay, this space opera, which eventually did turn into my first book and came out through an indie press. I said, okay, I'm going to try to shop this one. And when I was shopping it, it was like twice the size of the eventual book. Of course, you finish your book, you think you're amazing, you think people are going to love it to death. You're right and you're wrong. And so you send it out confident that you've edited it like 6 times and everybody's going to love it. And the book was 350 words. 350,000 words.
Okay. I was like,
so this guy
I could do that. Like now, let me just do that now.
He writes back to me and he says, this is not a book, this is 2 books, and I will not be reading either of them.
Well, Rhonda, I wanted to jump in and say you brought up something in passing that was really, really important, like relevant to the panel subject, which is like the red flags. Many red flags.
Red flags are really, red flags are really important.
Yeah, this is a cottage industry, right?
Yeah.
Because at the heart of it, this is an industry, a business that is based on how can we get something that how can we turn into money a thing that people are really passionate about and will do regardless of whether there is money involved. And that's where, you know, like the vanity press stuff comes in. But there's like a broad range of what counts as a vanity press or vanity adjacent or like indie publisher that does no royalties, that kind of thing. So like I went with trad because there is no way on earth that I could hawk my book in bookstores, especially knowing what the percentages are between like with Ingram and like in distribution, that kind of thing. Like if you're self-published and you're trying to sell it in a bookstore, then the bookstore is like, well, we need to have a significant enough discount on this book wholesale before we accept it and can think that we can turn a profit on this. And so that's where one of the pitfalls of self-publishing is because you have to drastically mark down your books and then hope like a bookstore is going to want to pick that up. But like going back to the whole distro thing, red flags that you should look for, because I think the number one thing getting into publishing, like when you're looking for an agent but also looking at small presses, you have to understand that the press knows that you are a desperate person and will prey upon that desperation. And so you have to do a lot of research with these indie presses with like, you know, they sound good. It's like Swords and Roses Press or something like that. We publish the most cutting edge romantasy. And I'm like, well, I've never heard of you. So you have to do so much research in who is at the press and what have they been dropping and like what's the buzz like on social media? What are the reviews like of these books, who is writing for this press, and like another good question to ask is, well, have I ever heard of this person? Because that's where your networks start coming in.
Really, it's really important that when I was coming up, there was literally websites devoted to this. Unfortunately, people died, people moved on, you know, but there was a site called Predators and Editors that literally did the good work of naming and shaming repeat offenders who pretend to be agents, repeat offenders who pretend to be presses, repeat offenders who pretend to be publishers. I think Victoria Strauss does that work now. So she's somebody that you can definitely check with and report people too. But one of the key things you want to do when you're going into traditional or indie publishing is take a look at that contract. And if you don't understand something in it, make sure you understand what it is. And if you're not comfortable, don't sign it, because trust me, no agent, no publisher is better than a bad agent or a bad publisher. Okay? Trust me when I say that. Do not give up your rights in desperation to put things out there. Do not
you
sell
always have
things
to
that have
value
value.
yourself.
Yeah,
you have to
in
value
desperation.
yourself more than then a publisher will value you, which is really a difficult lesson to learn. I
The
think
rights to your work is basically the only thing you have
The
to
only thing you
negotiate.
have. Yeah,
So
that's it.
when you give that up, you're giving yourself up to be taken advantage of.
And that's why it's so, for me, it was traditional publishing was the right path, because first off, I would have to get an agent. That really, really helps. And I had a very roundabout path. I was publishing for quite some time before I got an agent. And I got an agent after the publisher said, hey, I'd like to buy your books, you know? And this was just 2023. Yes, I have been in publishing since 2000, and I did not get an agent until 2023. And even then, I had to get an offer before I got the agent. But cool, water under the bridge. She didn't know me before. It's not her fault. She missed my genius. So I went into this understanding that I did not want to get ripped off. I wanted somebody who was with me for a certain kind of career, and I wanted a certain kind of publisher. And I made sure that I looked that up. I spent 20-something years in this industry, publishing at all different levels, you know, doing what I could. But one of the best things I did was very, very early on, when I decided, you know, the internet came up and stuff. There was this workshop called the Online Workshop for Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. It still exists. We call it the OWW. And yes, it was a paid workshop, but you could get scholarships if you were the kind of person who were willing to, you know, do a lot of work on the site, in the community, critiquing people and stuff. We're doing all of this for free. You critique who you want. But when you critique a lot, they would you could apply for scholarships because you could show that you were an active member of the community. And I basically was in there for 7 or 8 years on scholarship, because I realized that I learned a lot more from giving critiques than from receiving them. And that helped me up my craft. That was one of the big investments I made that really helped me. Some people do this in fan fiction sites now,
Mhm.
but I did
Yep.
it on that side. And the advantage to that rather than fan fiction is I learned to write with writers who were trying to do certain kinds of things, say, express themselves, say certain things, and we weren't immediately exposed to audience demand. One of the difficult things with being an indie for me is that you do have to write to what your audience wants to see. And there's no buffer for that because you're writing to please yourself and an audience, or you don't get money. You're not going to get paid if you don't please your audience. It's that simple. Whereas, yes, with publishing, there's a bit of a buffer where they pay you because they believe in your work. Even if your work doesn't sell, they may still believe in you and your work, and you may still have a career until your work takes off. Not everybody starts out immediately a success, you know. Victoria Averard, I don't think started out that way. Also, oh my gosh, I forgot her name, but she wrote oh gosh, she has this new book coming out. It's a sapphic paranormal romance. I can't remember her name right now, but she's really big. And her first few books were not very successful, but then the fourth book took off. And that's the way it goes, you know.
Yeah, I think that's
The big
applicable to all
investment,
parts, right, Rhonda? Like you
yeah.
have to continue to give yourself chances,
You
even if you're
have
Yep.
to
good.
get
You have
writing
to
is not a
value
career.
yourself.
Writing is not a career where you have to give up. Nobody ever is demanding your work. You don't get fired from it. There's no one standing over your head going, and now we've decided you are not successful enough. Go away forever and raise your children and forget you ever had this dream. No, you don't have to do that. So take the time to get good at what
Mhm.
you're good what you want to do. Take your time to figure out who you are and what you want to say. Don't necessarily think that you have to write to audience because you love a thing or you love a genre or you love a certain kind of story. That's the only story you're capable of, the only one people will buy from you, and the only thing you should sell. Give yourself a chance to figure out who you are. A lot of writers today are coming through fan fiction and they don't know who they are because they're writing what they're mirroring what they love. Then and you know, sometimes when you find
Yep.
that inspiration, it's the tip of the iceberg of who you could be and what you could say as an artist, as somebody who cares about stories. You know,
Mhm.
even if all you want to do is just tell stories, you don't have to tell the same story over and over to please people because you're good at that story. You know, I mean, the Voldemort herself decided that she wanted to be somebody else for a little while
And
in
she
order
was
to
still
tell
found out.
different stories, you know? Yeah, because you can't really hide when you're Voldemort, you have no nose. So, so at the end of the day,
Oh
yeah,
my
so,
goodness. Well,
yeah, she can't smell the shit
Rhonda,
she's spewing. So, you know,
I wanted to say like, unless May, did you have something that you wanted to say?
I think you guys basically covered everything. Like, publishing is about time and money, and you need to decide if you have more time or more money to
Mhm.
invest. And that will basically tell you the path that's for you. If you have more time, perhaps an indie and self-pub way will go will be the best for you because you can invest your time in learning how to wear all the hats you're gonna need to wear to publish. And if you have more money, you can invest in courses and other stuff that can help you get better at the craft.
yeah.
So
There are
it's a
free workshops like Critters, by the way.
yes.
I'm not a big fan of Critters. I prefer my workshop, obviously, but it doesn't work for everyone. You know, there,
You
there are
can just
different options
operate
out
on your
there.
own in a little
And
island.
you
Like
can
I,
just, yeah, you can just make friends. Like, even though I was on that workshop, I made a core group of friends, and that group of friends critiqued each other back and forth, you know, on that site for years. And of course, most of them are now Hugo winners and have film options and shit and don't remember me anymore. And so fine. It's fine. I'm not
well,
resentful at all.
excuse you, Rhonda, Sturgeon Night
For
winner.
for a
Excuse
Not really,
you.
no.
while, there
That's a complete
was
lie, by the way. Everybody is still friends with me. I'm just kidding.
for
So,
a
but like
while, a
with,
site that
oh,
I
go
really
ahead.
liked was Ladies Who Critique. And it doesn't exist anymore, but it's where I met a couple people that, I've known for years. One of our guests on a later panel, KJ Harwick, is like one of my favorite people. And I met her through that site, and we've critiqued a whole bunch of stuff for each other, and we're always cheering each other on. And like, those connections can be so valuable, and there are
Yes.
so many sites. There are some legacies, like Critters has been around forever. I hate the format of Critters, but if you like the way that it's laid out, then it's a great resource. There are so many options
Yeah. And
And
seeing
for
someone,
regardless
community.
yeah,
regardless of if you're spending time or money or a little bit of both,
Mhm.
having a community to support you is what's gonna get you through this. You cannot do this
100%.
Exactly.
alone.
100%. It keeps you from losing hope, and it also gives you stuff to celebrate. Celebrate when other people
Yes.
have success because they're right next to you, and that success could just move on over to the left or the right and be yours as well. And you'd want people to be happy for you too. It's fine to feel, oh God, I wish that was me. But remember to celebrate other people's successes because they could be yours in due time. And I see someone saying, sometimes it's worth it to pay just to be around serious people. And that was one of the advantages of the OWW was that because it was a
Mhm.
closed site and people had paid, first off, there wasn't a bunch of people in there stealing your work and then putting it up on Amazon for
Mhm.
99 cents. And everybody was serious. People who paid to come in there wanted to publish their work. So you weren't getting critiques from people who are just reading or people who just want to be mean because they're practicing for their Goodreads reviews. You know?
Well, I want to
Yeah,
add too that like there is especially in the self-publishing world, there are a lot of people who will say, "Oh yeah, we'll totally critique each other's work," and like, well, but they're not actually helping anybody get better.
No,
They're going,
no.
"I'm gonna give you a high rating, or I'm gonna give you a bunch of praise because I want the same back in return." And like, I have a very small core group. There's like 8 or 10 of us and we're very cautious about who we let in because we've seen and some of us are self-pubs, some want to do indie, some want to do trad. But the point is that like we've seen the bad side of all of this, of like people who aren't actually helping you get better, people who are just heaping praise on
100.
you because they
yeah.
want
100.
it back, or people who, when you give them valid critiques, will react poorly and then
Yeah.
like act as if you're the devil. And like, especially with social media now, I have seen people who have, raised a legitimate concern about something and then a campaign to ruin that person's career started because it's this very like dog eat dog world for some people. But what Rana was
Yes.
saying about like
Yes.
celebrating other people's successes, like building people up. If you're at the top of the ladder and you knocked everybody off to get where you are, you're alone up there. You got nobody. You have no friends. You have
Kinda,
no
does it?
connections. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't change your
Oh,
position. What you're saying is absolutely valid, and it's a reason why some writers don't feel comfortable in a community
Yes.
writing setting. Why some
Yeah.
writers feel comfortable working alone, and then when it comes time to market the book or get blurbs or even understand whether to
Yes.
have a good agent or a good publisher, they're all alone and they only have to rely on themselves. And people have apparently
Yes.
forgotten how to Google and read websites, right? So at the end of the day, they're a chat GPT going, is this okay? Or
Hmm.
they call up that one friend who's successful and they're like, I don't really have time. So it's not for everyone, the community setting, for sure, because you will
Hmm.
encounter trolls, you will encounter people who appear nice and then lose it
Yep.
when you say
Yep.
something negative or give them constructive criticism. You will always do that. But let me tell you something. For me, that was also a really important part of the process because I
Yes.
learned how to spot those people.
And you
And you're
get
gonna
thicker
have to
skin
learn how
too.
to and you learn how to parse good critique from viciousness.
Mhm.
Because I had
Hmm.
people tell me things, I'm not kidding. When I joined that workshop in 2000, it had over 8,000 people. Del Rey was the sponsor at that time, and it was free. There were
Wow.
8,000 people from around the world. I was the only person from Trinidad and Tobago and the first person from the West Indies you
Hmm.
know. And
wow.
literally, while I was there were only one other person who was from Jamaica, you know. And
All
when
right.
I something and posted it, a professor came by to tell me I needed to take remedial English classes because he didn't understand my work. And then he broke down that he was upset that I used prepositions to end a sentence in dialogue.
I've heard so many things about writing teachers specifically that have just turned people away from group writing sessions, from
Yeah.
all of writing altogether. Um,
They're all
but
they're all
we do have
writing
some
from these
audience
old
questions,
playbooks.
and we are running out of time.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, about that.
also, Rhonda, if you could share a link to the workshop you've been talking about in the
Oh,
chat,
sure.
while I get into this first audience question, that would be great. So this question is, if you're still in final revisions for your first book and you're planning to go trad, how do you decide when to start self-promotions? This person has been talking about it in conversation a little bit here and there with a few family members and friends, and they have critique partners, but no actual promotion. And the fear is letting themselves and others down if it doesn't go anywhere. So how would you recommend they navigate that, and when do they
So
get started?
I would say that what you're doing right now, speaking, like talking about your work and your process, that's not promotion. That is
Yep.
just telling your family and friends what's going on. If you're planning to go trad, then unfortunately the thing is about trad is like you cannot talk about thing for many years until thing is official. Like until the ink has dried on the contract, you shall not talk about thing unless you're acquiring thing or doing a pitch event like whatever, like a Bisky now has like pitch events. So I would hold off on actual promotion. So when I say promotion, I mean like making graphics to spread on social media, trying to figure out what the algorithm likes right now and making videos to hit that algorithm, reaching out to influencers, to promote your book. Like your book is not finished yet. Do not promote until that thing
Yep.
is
Nope.
like in the hands of an editor. You have turned it in. You have done your deliverables, and you know that it's coming out for sure. And you're like you have a vague idea of when that book is coming out. What you're doing right
When
now is
you're
just hobby talking. All right,
yeah,
so
when
don't
you're in
worry about
trad, after the book is bought by the publisher, they will give you the marketing timeline of when you can start to promote because you
it.
cannot talk about it before.
No,
You
Yeah,
you can,
cannot
just
promote
you
ask.
can
before.
you can be like, hey, I sold a book. Here's the publisher's marketplace announcement. You can talk about that.
Yep.
Vaguely, people will know. Oh, it's 2025. Let's say I sold a book right now. Vaguely, you will know it's coming out in 2027. That is a very, very long lead up. Generally, you will not start hard promoting your book until about 2 or 3 months before that book drops. Unfortunately, I am approaching that time right now, and it's like the worst.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
so sorry. Y'all will be so sick of me really soon. But yeah.
what you
So
can do is prepare. If you don't have a social media presence, if you can go ahead, open up some accounts, start actually putting stuff out there that's
Yes.
not your book, so that people will not feel like you're bombarding them for the sole reason of selling them your book. People feel really a how when you use your social media just to sell them stuff. So if you start off by being a normal person and then go, hey, this is my book announcement, I sold a book, and then you go into that, they don't think it's so hard. So most people have a social media presence at this point, but you have to pick the ones that are comfortable for you and that also kind of help move your book. So you may want to join some and see how it works for you. Like I do better on Blue Sky than I've ever done on Twitter, even though I had a lot of followers on Twitter. Other people do really well on Instagram, can't stand Blue Sky. Some people swear by Facebook and Facebook ads. It really is a kind of luck and also how your brain works thing. And I think
yeah.
it's really important, yes, to ask. Just ask. If you are going trad, you have a marketing team, you have an editor, you have an agent, most likely. You can ask them, is it okay if I start talking about the book now? But once that book announcement hits publishers marketplace, if
Yep.
they put one in there, sometimes people don't, it's weird. Then you definitely have permission to start talking about the book.
I would say there's promotional fatigue, which is why we're recommended like do not really start pushing your book hard until about 2 or 3 months before it drops. Because if you're like, oh, please buy my book, it comes out in 2 years. Most people will be like, now why would I spend $30 for
Yeah,
something in 2 years?
they're not
Why
going
would
to
I do it?
remember. And they're not going to remember you. People need to hear things multiple
Mhm.
times to remember
Yep.
it.
And I
Yeah.
think the same works in indie too. Like you basically don't start talking about it until like a couple weeks before drop, and you drum up all this interest, and then
Yep.
people can hit buy now because they want to
Definitely
live.
me.
Yep.
That's what I
You
did
can
with indie.
only
just a couple
You
of
can
weeks
only
ago.
start hard promoting, like putting like, oh, this book is definitely coming out once you have a buy now link, because people will forget. And if you don't put the link, they will not click
Amen.
on the
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing.
Like it's never too
So
early to say, "Hi, I'm a writer,"
yeah, no,
and
if you
maybe
have an
talk about your
idea
genre a bit. But it
and
is,
you're going self-pub, you can start talking about your idea the moment you have it, with a few caveats, because some people will be around you to try and steal your ideas. So
Mhm.
like, don't say everything, but you can say like, hey, I'm planning a sapphic fantasy story with a fairy and a necromancer, and that's vague enough that will get some people's attentions and will like be less likely to be stolen, because there's literally no details. But you can, if you're going self-pub, you can start talking about your ideas to get people to follow you, to follow your journey as a writer. But you can only start promoting the book, as in it has a title, once it has a link, a pre-order link where people can give you
Pretty
money,
much.
because people will
Yeah.
forget.
Yes. You want to convert those people like
Yep.
as much as possible. And honestly, the conversion rate is only a few percent. So,
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, few percent? God
oh
damn it. I
yeah,
wish I had
under 10%. I would say if
that.
like for reach, like if my video got like 100,000 impressions, I would expect like under 1,000 actual orders, you know?
Wow. She does
Yep.
videos. Shit. So anyway, yeah, I am no good at that at all. I have never done a TikTok in my life because I tried one and I showed it to my sister and she said, "Oh, look how cute you are trying so hard." And I have never done that again.
wow,
So I
talk
leave
about
that up to my
utterly
kids.
mortified.
I was mortified. I was, I thought I was hot shit. And she just like, no. She was like, don't do that without me again. And I was like, no,
Oh my
nobody
God.
do that.
Leave it
I
to
see this.
family.
I see this other. I mean, family. We gotta love them. I'm
Yeah.
an only child, and I'm so glad.
No, I
Same.
love my sister. She's my beta reader. She's my manager. She's everything. She's my best friend. She's my nurse. She takes care of me, everything, because I'm a cancer survivor and she was with me through the whole journey. So I don't know what I would do without her.
I would ring a
But she
bell if I
is,
had one.
yeah, but she is the queen of shooting it straight, you know? So if you have effed up on that book, she'll be like, you effed up. And I'll be
Amazing.
like, okay, but then she'll tell you how to fix it.
Okay, so we
But
have
your
Obviously,
one
sister and my
more.
critique partner would get along.
We have one more audience question. This one I think we can answer super quickly, and then we'll do a round of everybody sharing where people can find you. And this question is, if you have a story that you've published on Patreon, but your Patreon is very small, can you still present your draft to a small press or traditional publisher, or do you have to self-publish?
Only
May?
if they only if they accept pre-published stuff, because publishing on Patreon count as it having been published. If
Yes.
they
yeah,
need something that's never been published before, you cannot send that in. If you
yeah. When you
published on
publish,
Patreon, it's no longer brand new. You cannot send that in unless the publisher has a thing that says they accept pre-published stuff.
yeah, you have to really ask because at the end of the day, what publishing pays for is first rights. First rights in a language,
Yep.
usually, in this case, English. So, first rights is whenever your book is available for reading in this particular language, and being online counts as that. Even
Yep.
if you have a limited window or a limited forum, if people were able to read it beforehand, then you've given up your first rights, which is why we say be very, very careful. If you want to go into publishing and be a writer, and you want to also put fan fiction up, yes, there are people who have made the leap from fan fiction to published writer, and they had to go through all the work of filing off, the numbers from their inspiration in order to sell the book, like Ali Hazelwood or whatever. And
Mhm.
yes, you may have built up people, but that only happens like you gotta win a lottery ticket for that to happen. So the best thing for you to do, honestly, is if you want to really do this and you want to go try and you want to try in the published presses and stuff like that, do not put your ideas out there. Do not. The most you can do,
Yep.
maybe an excerpt, but do
Yep.
not put your full work out there for anyone.
The only way to publish after you've already published on Patreon or on a small forum is to self-publish
Yeah.
because you can do whatever you want with that.
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
send into a press, unless they state they take that kind of stuff, you're selling first rights, and that story no longer has first rights available.
Yeah, and I really just want to emphasize because I'm seeing people talking about, they scout agents on AO, agent scout on AO3, and that is all very true. But do you understand that there are millions of people on AO3? Do you understand that you are asking yourself to be a needle in a haystack? Do you really, really believe that for sure, if you put your entire work out there, you're going to be so amazing, so bombastic, that somebody's going to come along and offer you money for something you already gave away for free? Because that's what you're doing. You're asking people to pay for something that they already got for free, you know? So please, it's possible. It is not probable. Okay?
Yeah.
You
I
cannot tell yourself, I'm Allie Hazelwood, so I can do
And
this.
the thing is, her agent, the thing is about Allie's agent is already a Raylo, so she was very, very narrowed in on that genre
This is a
and
very
in that pairing and in those tropes. And that's how she picked up Allie, and that's how she picked up Thea, that's how she picked up Emily Skrutsky, like all those people like already funneled in. So like I said in chat.
This is a network thing.
Yeah.
People don't understand. When people get published, trust me, it is never accidental the way that it looks most of the time from these places. It is never accidental. It is about somebody having the foresight to go on a site, look up the stuff that's really popular, look up the person who's really popular in that stuff, and then decide they like it. They still have to like it. When I was querying for an agent, even though I had an offer in hand and lots of awards and all this other stuff, I got at least 15 rejections because people didn't like what I had. They didn't like the book. They didn't like my other work. They didn't want to work with me. So even if you are the bombasticest of the bestest, it does not mean the agent will still like your work enough to give you money, or that a publisher will buy into the agent going, hey, she has a lot of views. People love it. Give us money. There are many people on AO3 who have had millions of views and have no publishing contract. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Someone mentioned Twilight in the comments, and the story that I've heard about that is that book should never have gotten even read, but there was somebody working as an intern or something at that publishing house who really vibed with that story and made sure to set it on an agent's desk. Like that it was already in a slush pile. It was already it wasn't gonna happen. And then some young adult was like, I dig this. I'm gonna set this here. It is winning the lottery, I think someone said. It's getting struck by lightning. It's not managing expectations, regardless of which way you publish, helps keep you grounded and make sure that you don't get disappointed when you don't become an overnight sensation. Like self-publishing takes up to 10 years to start being really lucrative.
You're not guaranteed to be an overnight sensation,
no,
but
absolutely
you also don't have to have no career because you're not an overnight sensation.
Absolutely.
Also, someone said some agents will take on writers who have been very successful as self-published. Do not go into self-published counting on getting an agent. Do not do that. You will get disappointed. The chances of that happening are so slim. It's not worth to go with that expectation.
We are actually over time now. So I feel confident we could all continue having this conversation for another hour. Everyone here is great, but we do have other panels today. So I'm going to just go final go around, and everyone, if you could just repeat your name, where folks can find you, and maybe like a 2-sentence pitch for your most recent or soonest coming out book, that would be great.
Should I go first? Okay, so I'm RSA Garcia. You can look me up on rsagarcia.com, or you can check me out on Blue Sky, which is where I hang out most of the time. Right now, I have 2 new books out. One is called The Night Ward. It's a science fantasy. If you like matriarchal societies where femme-presenting people have one set of powers and masculine-presenting people have a different set of powers, and we fight. then this is the book for you. And then I also have another fantasy out that was inspired by Sting Song Desert Rose and a little bit by Greek mythology, and it's basically about a young woman who lives in a tower and can taste truth and lies, who runs into a thief. He upends her entire life. So that one's more romantic, and the other one's more of an adventure. I hope you decide you want to read either of them because give me money, please. I'm broke.
I think this goes for all of us. Like, please give us money. We're broke and we're getting
Please give us
broker.
money.
Yes.
I'm Mia Tsai. You can find me online at miatsai.com. I have one book out and one book forthcoming. The first book is Bitter Medicine. That is a romantic fantasy, 50-50 romance and fantasy, contemporary. The second book is The Memory Hunters. Here's my arc. Those are not flowers, those are mushrooms. This is adult science fantasy that Rebecca Fremow has said, the most interesting work of archival SFF I read this decade. So don't let the sales copy trick you into thinking this is Indiana Jones. It's not. It is. It's fuck the British Museum. That's what it is.
Amazing.
Amazing.
I am Gabriel Hargrave. You can find me at gabrielhargravewrites.carrd.co. I have a lot out. We'll go with I have the third book in my series coming out later this year, so we'll promote that. The first book in that series is The Orchid and the Lion. It is a very spicy genre blending story about sex workers on a space station 150 years in the future who get embroiled in a political plot that ends up completely turning their world upside down. The series itself is basically fight fascism in heels. And I don't know when the third one is coming out, but it is finished. I'm in the editing process. So that's The Orchid and the Lion is the first book in that series. And again, I am broke, so please buy my books. Email me if you want me to edit your work. My email is on my card, and I think that's it.
And I'm May Bahus. You can find me at maybahus.com.br. And I have a short story out called Journey Home about two witches who go on an adventure through space. And I'm working on translating a novelette I had written in Portuguese into English about a princess, a necromancer, and a fairy going on a road trip with a skeleton cat. Yes, it will probably be out sometime later this year as soon as I get the translation done and proofread. And I'm available for cover art and I do skill swap. So hit me up if you guys want illustrator covers. And that's it.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our
Diana.
wonderful
Thank you for having
panelists
me.
and to everyone in the audience. So the conversation will continue going in the Discord. There is a channel specifically for continuing to talk about this panel. So if you have questions that you didn't get to ask or you wanted to know more about one of the wonderful projects our panelists just mentioned, you can hop on over to the Discord and we will be there chatting all day, and we will have an after party from 6 to 7 in the voice chat there. Please come to the after party so that I'm not just sitting in voice chat by myself. And yeah, our next panel is in about 20 minutes. So be sure to check that out as well. And do also check out Renaissance Press, who has kindly donated this Zoom space for us. And of course, weeknightwriters.com, where you can find out more about our events, sign up for our newsletter, and find out information about our sustaining membership program that goes into supporting all of the work that we do here. Because while we do our best to make everything free or affordable, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And yeah, it's just really helpful if you can contribute something to help us make it keep happening. All right.
Thank you so much.